buen día, bienvenidas, bienvenidos a la
Good morning. Welcome everyone to the 7th conference, regional conference on social work and migration. This is by the Social Studies Investigation and universities in Canada, United States of America, Mexico, and Central America. We appreciate the presence of Professor Carmen Casas-Ratia. She is the director of president of the RENIEST, and she is the director of the School of Social Work. Welcome. Thank you very much. Welcome you. Welcome here. We're going to start in a few minutes. It's my pleasure to have you here on this digital media on our dear School of Social Work. We're the headquarters of the 7th Conference on Social Work and Migration of Mexico, United States, Canada, and Central America. It's a pleasure to see you. Hello, I'm saying greetings to the deans of all the countries that we just mentioned, the universities, professors of social work, community, who are here present with us for the beginning of this regional conference. Of course, we're going to welcome our president, our presenter. He has a bachelor's, right? Professor in Paris, France. He has a Ph.D. in Constitutional Rights on Universidad Complutense of Madrid. He is the associate professor in UNAM, the National Autonomous National Mexican University. And he is also a writer on the journal on constitutional rights in Mexico. And he is also the president of heads of the UN Human Rights Commissions. First, we welcome you, Dr. Edgar Corzo Gutierrez is going to start talking about the experiences of respect for the human rights of people and perspective at COVID-19 pandemic. First, thank you, Pedro. Can we start? Go ahead, doctor. Thank you. Thank you, dear Pedro. So first of all, let me appreciate the invitation of being here with you. Let me appreciate the organizers of the 7th Regional Conference on Social Work and Migration of Mexico, United States, Central America, and Canada. Especially Professor Carmen Casas. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I think one mic is on. Could you please turn it off, please?
Continúo. En especial señalaba a la maestra Carmen Casas, directora.
Let me continue. Thank you, Professor Carmen Casas. She is the president of the National School of Social Work. And also Dr. Isnardo. I've been talking to you about the details on my presentation. And of course, let me tell you that it's been my pleasure before to cooperate with the School of Social Work in different occasions about this interesting subject. And I appreciate the presence of different professors, deans, faculty members of social work in the region and other countries. Let me talk to you for a few minutes. I'm hoping that I'm not going to take longer. Pedro, please let me know if this is going to be like 30-35 minutes. And first of all, let me tell you, this is like a generic experience about pandemic and migration, human migration. This is, for example, about freedom of movement. We have to talk about the experiences at the border. And of course, this caused a commotion on human rights of people who were migrating to other countries. The pandemic, again, focused on the subject of migration. I want to talk to you about 2 human rights that were especially affected by these measures. One was the right to health, and the other one is the rights of workers on the right to migrating, of course, the right of life. And I'm not gonna talk because of lack of time the effect the pandemic had on the context of migration, on people. This migration was the pandemic was one of the reasons we had to focus again on these policies on migration. Once again, it was just like when on this context, it was just one of the causes why we started talking again about migration and migration policies. I'm going to talk also about, I mean, the pandemic that just happened, but we're still living its consequences, about the social structures that we have been building because of the pandemic. We have to stop helping this structure to continue growing because we have to go back to whatever worked at the beginning. So let's talk about the beginning of the pandemic. In 2019, many governments started putting a stop on mobility rights. Just as the pandemic was beginning, they had to stop the the access on different borders. They thought that they had to contain the virus from coming to their own countries. However, they didn't have enough information, and they took measures with no sufficient information. In general terms, as months went back, the medical requirements to authorize the entrance to the country, as quarantine, PCR tests, and other, we were seeing them even more and more. According to the National Tourism Association, by May 2020, 72% of the countries had completely stopped mobility through international tourism. They had to stop admissions of people by land and water, and many of them, like 4% of the countries, closed their borders, and they diminished, and they started focusing on certain countries from stopping those people from coming to their countries. Others, the ones who were able to go to those countries, they had to undergo a lot of requirements. For example, they had to be in quarantine for 90 days. They had to have a letter from their doctors. And let's say 30% in Europe, the borders were closed. In America, it was a 70%. The Midwest was maybe 80%, and Africa was 70%. By 2020, 70% of countries had authorized travel requirements. They had to stop the travel authorizations because they wanted to take measures as a response from the pandemic on 2019. So of course they wanted to diminish the presence of the virus through the year and through 2021. However, this together with everyone and the OMS, who was the organization who was advising everyone to restrict traveling, the governments started taking advantage of this, and they had to take some resources, and this pandemic was an excuse to stop rights like.
Would you please turn it off? Thank you. Les comentaba los derechos que habían sido afectados.
I was telling you about the rights that were affected, maybe public information, mobility, the right to private property, and also they had to start checking on people. They had to get the data information. It was a massive data breach, just as an excuse of the response of the pandemic. We have a worse scenario. For example, people who were already infected with COVID-19, they already had a bigger risk of losing their human rights. It wasn't just about avoiding getting infected, but the people who were already infected, they didn't have the respect of the human rights that they deserved. So what happens? With this restriction of movement, we had to close the border again as a response, and they put us in this complicated and complex scenario about human rights. On my second part is other human rights affected by the pandemic. One was, of course, the having access to health and the rights of migrating workers. The first one was the human right of health. This was worrisome because, of course, we have to talk about how the availability of facilities, the medical facilities and medical supplies, the deficiencies on attention and medical treatments. We had bad conditions on structure, infrastructure, hygiene, lack of training for medical people, and also we didn't have enough information about the medical treatment to follow. We have more information about this, about the relation that we have between health and migration. We have two positions. The first position is that if the analysis is on the context of migration, we put health on a second layer. So let's say, yes, you're a migrant, and we're going to see whether you receive or not the right of health. Of course, we have this vision in several places, but we have a more pertinent vision. We have to give them the right of health to everyone. And if that person is on the context of migration, then we take that person into account as a risk factor. We have to take into account that we have to give them the right of health, because if we say someone is in the process of migration, we don't take into account the right of health. So this is the thing. If we see that this person is in a migration process, we don't take into account the right of health access. And then we have to know that the health access is the main thing that we have to take into account on a person in a migration context. So the other protection that we have to talk about that we didn't have since the pandemic in 2019 started, and this process that I'm going to talk about hasn't disappeared, but it's persistent, and this is a consequence of what we went through. One of the first observations that we had, we determined that it was especially important to guarantee the right of life and health access with no discrimination whatsoever, included, among other groups, to migrants. The right of health access, the court said, has to be guaranteed, and we have to take into account human dignity, and we have to follow the standards of availability, accessibility, acceptability, and quality appropriate to the pandemic. In two resolutions, the Commission of Human Rights published several observations about human rights of health access. First of all was the right to decrease the infection rate, and also the rights of the people who were already infected. Now, about the right of health access migrants have, we can talk about the Office of the Commissioner of the United Nations for Human Rights. We produced this document, is 2019, and Human Rights of Migrant People. We saw that they have to undergo obstacles before getting health access. For example, the restriction of traveling and administrative practices, and everything is an obstacle for them to have access to health on the basis of the migrant condition. Of course, people don't go to look for health treatment or for medical treatment because they are afraid that their status of a migrant is going to be affected by looking for medical treatment. But they, independently, under migrant condition, they have the right to have health access. In the same sense, the Commissioner of the UN Human Rights Commission, they said that the impact of the pandemic in regards of the protection of human rights on migrants, she said that there were cultural barriers, language, lack of information, discrimination, and they had the basic idea, independently or the of the immigration status, every people involved in this situation, they had to have access to medical treatment and access to medical information. So we had this international observations on human rights to access of health. So we had to establish that it was necessary for them to receive an appropriate medical treatment and go to appropriate medical facilities, including migrant workers and migrant people. And we had to include immigration as part of one of the requirements that were not longer required to have access to vaccination. This way, the migrant people who were going to seek medical treatment weren't going to be questioned by the Immigration Border Patrol, for example. And after that, we had to, for example, the relator of the United States for the human rights of migrant people, we have to know that shelters and different structures designed for migrant protection, we had to take into account that we have to implement measures to prevent them to get infected of COVID-2019. And independently of their migrant status, they had to have access to medical treatment in case they get infected with COVID-19. And then we had the vaccines. The vaccines were a problem also because we had to guarantee the access of these vaccines for these people, because unfortunately, like the World Health Organization's commissioner said that rich countries had all the supplies of vaccines, and now the poor countries, they couldn't distribute enough vaccines. Let's say, for example, one of the poor countries only got 25 vaccines, and the other countries received 39 million. So in this moment, we had to prioritize the access of vaccines, not only for the countries, but also for the people who were moving from one water to other. The UN, World Health Organization, and other world organizations asked the rich countries to include migrant people to be included on their policies for the pandemic 2019. And they had to have equal access to vaccines of COVID-19 regardless of the migrant status. We can also add the importance of mental health, because sometimes this is something invisible when we're talking to the human right of health access. If we talk about health as something that is fundamental for people, we can go and see how unbalanced the circumstances are when migrant people are trying to adapt to their new life. The migration process leads people to suffer something called grief, and they put them on a place where socially they are not able to adapt. This is not only suffering from mental health, but they are also becoming a risk factor. So these situations are caused by the level of stress a migrant is suffering or going through from losing their loved one, or maybe because of the failure of the migration process, and also because they are trying to survive. As well, organized organized crime is also involved, and also they are afraid of deportation. So all of this is called Ulysses syndrome. This is a reference to the Greek hero who underwent several stressful situations where losing loved ones. We always talk about resilience, the people who were undergoing traumatic experiences or having. We always talk about how brave they are, but we have to know they are going through suffering because they have lost everything and they are in risk of losing even more. So we have all these risks, social, mental risks, that can even worsen the effect of the pandemic. We have we have seen several waves of this infectious disease, and we can know, even if we are not migrant people, we can see how vulnerable we are. We have faced uncertainty, we have faced fear of getting infected, of someone else getting infected. This is a psychological disorder. We have had anxiety, depression, insomnia, and of course, depression has had like a 77% on pandemic, and also anxiety 35% increase after the pandemic. Now, if we talk about poor countries and socially affected people in those poor countries, they have a higher rate of mental health problems, but they don't have access to treatment for mental health. So the measures of isolation have caused anxiety, uncertainty, fear, hope. They are hopeless. They also feel the need to reject self-care. They have had many respiratory problems and also abuse of substances. Everything has been related to psychosocial problems and also mental and psychological problems. So I'm talking about health, so let's talk about Mexico. On the protocol of prevention and attention on suspected cases and confirmed cases of COVID-19 on, migration facilities and also the National Institute for Migration, they related the facilities, availability of facilities for mental health. They knew and they observed that a person who is undergoing a migration process, they present a higher rate of stress, and they present symptoms of anguish, anxiety, somatic symptoms, irritability, frustration, and they are mad. That is why they have to have access to information, clear information about self-care, hygiene, what is the step to follow after they are infected with COVID-19, have a staggered step for example, if they have to go and undergo medical treatment, how the officials, the migration officials are not involved in that. They also have to know that they have to seek mental help to whoever needs it. And the migration station here has to work to have responses to those needs. They have to know where to seek mental treatment, and also how a psychosocial partnership with other people who lost loved ones because of the pandemic and the migration process. You can see, if I mention the health, if we see how complicated medical treatment is, can you imagine how hard it is for them to look for mental health? This is a third level access to health. It is not a basic medical treatment. This is not basic human rights of health. This is a third level. It is very complicated. And this is something people who were undergoing the migration process suffer. Even though the destiny country is accepting them in, they had to take time to recover the status of mental health. This is very complicated. So let's talk about the rights of migrant workers. The World Work Organization in 2020, the unemployment went up to 31 million, and 23 million left the workforce temporarily, and they had lost their jobs and their income. About the service factor, let's say commerce and service, they lost 35%. And then the health service lost 35% of constructions and facility and also workforce. In 2019, situations turned more complicated. If the worker was undocumented, they couldn't give them any medical excuse to go and look or seek medical treatments. So if it was hard for a worker to have days off because they were sick, even more so a migrant worker, it was impossible for them to leave work for 1 or 2 days because of illness. It is important that all the workers have material available to prevent infections. The undocumented workers, besides being they're at risk of being deported, they also had the risk of being infected by COVID-19. They had to continue working because regularly they don't have any access to medical excuses or maybe medical insurance. These migrant workers, not only were they at risk of getting infected, but they were at higher risk of getting other people infected. After the pandemic, we have to recognize that we have had a focus on not only migration, but also in agriculture. The migrating activity has been necessary, and we can see that now because we have essential workers, correct? However, unfortunately, even though we saw these people were essential workers, they didn't receive better work conditions. In the workforce, the effect of the pandemic has been very intense. During the first months of pandemic, we saw several people, a massive amount of people left the workforce. They lost formal and informal jobs. And even if some countries have taken intense measures to avoid losing more people on the workforce, the effect of the pandemic has had an unprecedented amount of losses. Let's say safe isolation, quarantine, and social distancing. Those measures that were taken to lessen the effect of COVID-19, they also affected because they interrupted and put a stop on the production. Why? Production of everything. They had to decrease the amount of workers they had at the same time working. They had to decrease the amount of hours each worker was working, and the demand was growing. They didn't have enough people to continue the production. So why do we have this? We have this because of the vulnerable groups who were called or mentioned. They were essential. They didn't receive more more benefits of health or more benefits on the workforce. That is why we had this increase of prices. Even though they were essential, they didn't receive the essential prices, let's say, that those people needed and deserved. So the Human Rights Commission in 320/03, they observed that whenever a migrant worker assumes a work relation, at that moment they had to receive, as any other worker does, the benefits of a regular worker, even though their status is not regular. Not the state, not the individuals are obligated to offer work to undocumented people. But in case they do have to offer them the regular rights a regular worker will receive. That is why this situation can become a responsibility of the state. And they have to be held responsible for whatever responsibility or whatever negligence they have. 179 million around the world of people around the world in 3 sub-regions in North Europe, Southern Europe, and the West. It was 26.5%. North America, 21.1%. And Africa was 26.6%. Some percentage of these were women. I mean, of course, about the region in Northern Europe, it was more than 50% of women. However, on the Arab states, it was less than 20%. So after the pandemic, situation got worse. 1 year after the pandemic, in March 2021, migrant people were at least 3.7% in 14 of the countries with higher cases of COVID-19, more than 7% in 9 of those countries. An important fact that we have to take into account is that migrant workers who had a lower rate of grading, they had a dangerous workplace, degrading workplace, and difficult workplace. They had to undergo everything with no social protection, no work security, not health access, and not recognition of their work. This is always a problem because not everyone provides with information. So since these people, because they weren't qualified enough, these people were hardly affected by the pandemic. In Saudi Arabia, for example, of all the cases confirmed, the 75% were migrants. Or Singapore, where in June, more than 95% of cases confirmed were migrants. These people, immigrant workers, were the first ones who were infected by confirmed cases of COVID. But their situation has worsened, including domestic workers, because they were exposed to a higher risk of loss of income, and in some cases they were fired without any payment whatsoever. It increased even more so because of the pandemic. They didn't have any new benefits under conditions. In generic terms, the migrant workers had more obstacles on accessing health treatments on their countries, but even more so for domestic workers, it was more severe because on top of the regular conditions like depression and their income is always less than other people, they had to leave and they had to flee because they lost all their income, whatever that was because it was very little. They couldn't stay on the country they were living, and they had to leave because they couldn't live with the family they were living in. They were living with at the beginning. They also had to go back to their country, but also undergo quarantine. So migrant workers maybe didn't know how important getting new information was for them to avoid getting infected. Even though most of the workers had a cell phone, they couldn't have enough information about health or social protection. When we talk about the Commissioner for Human Rights for immigrant workers, he said that they had to be included on the measures of prevention and on the measures for COVID-19. They mentioned also that medications and treatment had to be free of discrimination. They had to give, especially essential workers, they had to provide them with personal safety equipment, and also for the workers in the sectors, health sector, they had to receive this as well. However, the social protection measures had to be, at the beginning, available for migrant workers and their families, because it was very possible that they had a low level job, and also they were at risk of losing their job as a result of the pandemic. For the court, besides respecting work rights of every worker, we had to have measures to lessen the impact of work sources for workers. We had to tell them how necessary was for them to receive the protection, not only for their dignity, but for the protection of others. We have to have like a handbook for companies and business to guarantee the protection of migrant workers on health crisis. This is protected by we have to understand that companies have the responsibility of guaranteeing the human rights and basic necessities or basic needs of employees. They have to implement services to guarantee this prevention. They have to lessen the stress and anxiety caused by COVID-19. They have to guarantee the global access of health services and also give them more accessibility on the workforce, and also guarantee the human rights of migrants and also the rights of migrant workers on times of crisis. And I'm going to conclude saying this. This is a reflection on the post-pandemic. Fight against the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and at the same time to protect the human rights of people in movement is a formula that has to be considered necessary to leave this health crisis that we are living in. We have the opinion that only by protecting people's human rights, including the ones who are moving around borders, can we have an integral response to lessen the negative effects of the pandemic. We cannot lose the side of guaranteeing the best side to guarantee the human rights necessary for the human rights of people after the pandemic. Many rights that they were guaranteed by the social rights or human rights of people have been broken. We have to guarantee that we have to respect their human rights. If we don't have health access, and I'm talking about post-pandemic, we have to go back to our natural course. We have to look for channels to migration regularization. That is a measure that can be that can be reached to guarantee the new normal that we have right now post-pandemic. People who are on the migration process, even if they are regular or irregular, talking about their documentation, we have to allow them to be involved and to contribute to their development, their own and the country. The creation of these channels or mechanisms to migration regularization can contribute to avoid continuing having people, undocumented people, on their own country. They cannot continue to be excluded. They have to be guaranteed that they are going to be socially protected. And also, those people who are already documented, they can contribute to regulate the people who are not documented. With all these measures, we are going to stop them from leaving the country. It is important for human rights to understand that the migrant worker has to be part of the workforce of a country because they are going to be producing part of the production. The people who have a condition, an irregular migration condition, have to have access and they have to have information about how can become a regular migrant and not irregular anymore. This is important to guarantee the human rights of every migrant worker and their families. We have to let them know that if they are part of the workforce, they and their families, we have to take into account that we have to let them know that the organizations are working to have them included, they and their families, on the new measures that are going to be taken. We have to take into account the circumstances of their entrance, how long they are going to stay, and also other pertinent situations, particularly what the situation in their family is. This is what I wanted to tell you, and I'm sorry that I took so long to tell you what I needed to tell you. But we have to say that, well, we didn't leave the pandemic behind. Yes, we talk about the post-pandemic era. However, if we take into account the measures that haven't taken place and haven't been implemented by world organizations, we cannot say that we are in the post-pandemic era. But we have to take into account the observations that we had after the pandemic, and we cannot forget how important these measures are on the human rights of migrant workers. And I'm not only talking about our brother in the north. We have several borders around the world, and the situation is the same. Thank you very much for listening to what I had to say. Gracias. Thank you, Dr. Edgar Corzo, because he is the president of the heads of the UN Human Rights Commissions. Thank you very much. It was an honor to have you in our regional conference, Canada, Mexico, United States, Central America, on social work and migration. We have invited 2 presenters to add 2 brief comments, if you can give us a little bit more time. We have to say that President Olga Garcia, the president of the AMIET, is present. And also Professor Laura Gonzalez. She is the General Secretary of the REMIET. Good day, everyone. And also the President Martin Castro Guzman. Thank you for being here with us. Of course, thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation, excellent observations. Thank you, Doctor. Well, now I'm going to present the person who's going to be presenting the program, Casa Refugiados, Refugee Home. Professor Talavera, of course, can you tell us what your reaction is or your response to this conference, please, if you can be so kind?
Se va a volver a conectar el maestro.
He's going to connect in a second.
Voy a dar la palabra al maestro Martín Cáceres. Él es rector del Instituto Universitario de
I'm going to talk about Fermín Cáceres. He is the president of the University of Mexico in Tapachula, Chiapas. He's going to talk to us. He's going to talk to us about what's going on in Chiapas and also on focusing on his university. Can you give us a response to what Dr. Corzo said? Thank you very much, dear doctor and friend, Pedro Isnardo de la Cruz. We have to congratulate you for organizing this event and this conference and the participation of Dr. Edgar Corzo with the information he shared with us. And of course, more than numbers, these are human lives. And we understand that these percentages and statistics represent these people who had suffered and struggled through these very bad situations when they are traveling from one country to another. And I had this observation when I heard Dr. Corzo about the subject of what we are going through. Besides of the violations of human rights is the subject of COVID. We cannot forget that along with the subject of going through a global pandemic, we have to add the situation of the lack of respect of human rights. And we have to talk about the importance of how willing the governments were to contribute or to lessen the impact of human rights. When we are talking about migration processes around the world, it always goes to the governments, correct? More than, besides talking about the vaccines or maybe whether it was possible or not to give the vaccines, the government's decisions were what mattered the most in these cases. Dr. Corso said something that we had imagined, but it is a subject that it's far from being understood, of course. But this information Dr. Edgar said, this information Dr. Edgar shared, let us know how much it is to be done, how much there is to be done. And for example, right now we're talking with our bachelor's students, undergraduate students who are working in social work. And the social work we are doing, when you talk about this, we have to sensibilize, or we have to tell this information to these students, and they have to tell the society as well, because they need to know that people are going through this, and we as a society have to take this as a responsibility. The doctor said that states, nations are not obligated to hire migrant workers. We don't have to have that obligation. However, on the same moment that they are letting them be part of the workforce, they have to guarantee that their human rights as workers are going to be respected. And I'm going to talk about Tapachula in particular. We see this constantly. We see the problems related to COVID. as the doctor was saying, yes, we are at the post-pandemic era, but the cases are still here, and we have several health subjects that haven't been observed. And on this southern place of the country, we see this firsthand. We are facing the situation where we see that we don't have enough hygiene on the streets, but everything is because of the lack of support from the government. They are not willing. I don't think this is a subject of a matter of resources, but this is a matter of them not willing to take measures to overcome this problem. And I appreciate, doctor, that you mentioned this because you are inviting us to have a different perspective. Right now, since we have the university with the undergraduate course of social work, we have to take this information to the classrooms. Thank you. I don't want to extend myself. I appreciate your participation and greetings for all the participants. Thank you, Professor Cáceres, President. Thank you very much. We are going to acknowledge the presence of Carmen Casas, Professor Carmen Casas. Thank you very much for being with us on this session.
Y por supuesto, adelante, maestra.
Nada más. Aquí seguimos. Muchas gracias.
I just wanted to thank you very much. I congratulate you for this conference, and also thank you for your comments, Dr. Fermin Cáceres. Thank you, everyone. I know that we have several members of the RENIES and also faculty members who are members of the committee of this regional conference.
Está en Costa Rica, atendiendo
now, in Costa Rica, Professor Talavera is in Costa Rica right now, so he has connection problems. We're going to wait for a few moments. I don't know, Professor Talavera, if you're still here. I'm here, and I'm sorry. Well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Edgar for all the comments, and we have very important subjects that we have talked about, everything about social situations, how the COVID has impacted on this new era of the pandemic, like you mentioned, and how we are adapting, the community, how it is important to know that, I cannot extend myself on these comments because if we are continue building, we don't know in depth how this dynamic is affecting people and communities and how they are placed on a complex situation, on a state nation, how we are facing the situation. It is very important to talk about everything that you had mentioned. And I don't want to extend myself, but thank you. Thank you, Professor, President. We are going to close our first session. Do you have any comment, Dr. Corzo? Yes, of course, gladly. I saw Professor Araceli Borja wants to say something. No, that wasn't my hand. That was an applause for you. No, on the contrary, thank you, everyone. I know the subject of people on immigration context is not an easy subject. This is a complex subject. So the will of the government, like Dr. Jesus Martin Cáceres said, is very important. And not only the willingness of the government, but also the policies of the government. It is related. So the flux of immigration, it is spontaneous, correct? However, we do see some regions that are becoming part of the change on a government policy that coincides with a new route the people is taking to transfer to another place. Let's say like Russia and Ukraine and Turkey and Syria. These are very bad subjects, correct? But this situation causes immigration. These situations are causing or the migration is the consequence of whatever is going on there. And it's not one or two family, but millions of people. Whatever is going on around the world, it's affecting and impacting the whole world. Even though we are next to a big country, we are also receiving people who are coming from Africa, from Asia, and we have to take into account when we receive these migrant people that we have to be very well informed on how to best help them and what the struggles they have with them when they come here. And this is a recurring global subject, let's say climate change and also migration. These two subjects are never going to be out of fashion, unfortunately. These subjects are telling us what needs we have at the moment in a global vision. So I am the president of the 10 heads of the committees of the UN Human Rights Commissions. On their behalf, I appreciate the interest of the universities, the schools on these subjects to guarantee human rights. Thank you very much. Thank you. We are pleased that you were here with us and you were part of this conference. Of course, we are going to have a regional conversatory of directors and deans of all the universities that we have here. Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much, and I wish you success on your endeavors. Go ahead, Professor Araceli. I don't know if you want to introduce our next event. Yes, welcome everyone.
Ya está por aquí el doctor Luis Torres.
We have Dr. Luis Torres to continue this second part of this important conference, the 7th Regional Conference on Social Work and Migration in Mexico, United Central America, and Canada. Go ahead, Doctor, and along with Dr. Luis Torres, welcome, Dr. Torres. You can host the next exercise. It's going to be about 2 questions directed to the deans, president, to continue with this important analysis of this central subject that we have today. Thank you very much. Professor Araceli, Coordinator of Investigation on the School of Social Work, for introducing this new momentum on the conference, regional conference. Personally, I do feel the warmth of the people who are going to be with us on the 15th and the 16th. Dr. Torres with his colleagues on the School of Social Work on Rio Grande Valley in Texas. Thank you. And also Dr. Christian Bruce in Canada. It's packing her suitcases. And also Dr. Borja is coming as well. And our colleagues in Central America that who had confirmed their presence here. Thank you very much for the opportunity of being able to get together with the warmth of our hearts together in Mexico City. So I want to introduce Dr. Luis Torres so he can start what we had agreed upon on this regional conference. So he can do a follow-up on the work, conclusions, and observations the audience is waiting for. Thank you, Dr. Pedro Izquierdo. Thank you, Professor Araceli, and thank you President Carmen Casas for the support on these events, and the colleagues who have decided to make space on their schedules for this conference. Hello, directors, presidents, deans, coordinators. It is a challenge because they are always very busy. And when we got in touch with you, because I got in touch with some of you, for example, our colleague Loyola and also Maria Vidal was calling every person here, and they said, yes, I'm available, I'm gonna be here. So this is a compromise, and this marks the relationship that we have developed and how important it is for us, this work. And I also appreciate the time that we had for or prior this conference. At this moment, we are all presenting and presenting, but at the end of the day, we have no relationship between each other. So we have to ask them to not take longer than 5 minutes when talking a little bit about their program and their work about this subject, this immigration subject. We have to identify organic cooperative opportunities. If we are doing something similar, we can get in touch with one another and complement our efforts. And we have to continue communicating with each other to see if we work together, we can have a new idea that can be maybe complicated for one program, but we can do it together. So it's less than 5 minutes, please. Dr. Maria and I are going to be timing you guys. And we are going to be a little bit harsh, not harsh, but firm. When we say time, I ask you to please finish with your comments and summarize whatever is left. Everyone will have the opportunity to talk for 5 minutes, and then we're gonna have the opportunity of asking questions. Dr. Pedro Esnardo is the one who's going to start. What is the order, Dr. Pedro Esnardo? Let's do it by chance. Okay, we are here. Everyone is present. Why don't we alternate? One of you, one of us, one from Central America. We are taking Dr. Cesar de Leon Alvarado. He's my colleague, he's from Coahuila. I'm here, my dear doctor. If it's fine by you, let's start with you. Of course, yes.
I'm very pleased to be able to share with everyone here, with all the attendees, deans, directors, presidents, everyone, all our colleagues and friends. Well, here in Saltillo, obviously, it's a border state with Coahuila. As Mr. Fermin said, in Tapachula we have the first phase, and over here is the last stage of the journey. It's transiting like city with the migrants. Here, immigration has intensified because there's, it's a safer route somehow than Nuevo León or Tamaulipas. And one of the challenges that we face as School of Social Work is to involve ourselves from academia with our professors, researchers, students, because they cannot be oblivious to the fact that to the needs and this reality of people who are in transit, which can be seen everywhere, intersections, different activities, hotspots in town. So, and also as all the shelters, migrant shelters, where they give them all the attention they need. Right now, we're getting ourselves involved in different efforts with University in Nuevo León with Dr. Torres It froze a little. Let's see. Yes, we lost a little bit of the signal. I don't know if he's still with us, Dr. Cesar. Yeah, the last few words. I'm here. I'm back. Well, as I was saying, we are working in this project to do some follow-up in the journey of immigrants related to any health issues. We want to go beyond academia, data collection, interviews, which we've done so far, but also to have an impact and have an end product. In this case, this chart, this that will allow us to follow both physical and mental health as we have seen during transit. And from there, we would like to go to immigration policy, public policy, health policies, especially mental health, emotional health, which we have also seen that during the pandemic exploded. It was already there, but nowadays it's still intensified. So we see more people, more women in transit traveling alone, as well as children without adult supervision. And they require a very specific kind of attention that goes beyond the existing models from governments and other agencies that serve these immigrants in transit. So we want to be actively involved in this effort. Thank you so much, Cesar. I am very thankful that we asked you to participate with a warning. I'm very excited about cooperation, and I would love to visit Saltillo. I haven't been there, but we'll be traveling there soon. In Puerto Rico, we say we go from, we're going to go from north, we're going to Honduras I had sent a message to Miss Ulga to see if she could go next. And after Ulga, if you want to get your comments ready, Francisco from Loyola. Well, good morning. Yes, I am very pleased to be able to participate in this regional conference in immigration. And this is the second year where we have been participating. Thank you so much for the support of UTR with UTRGV, which has invited us, was so kind to invite us to participate in this conference and to get ourselves involved in immigration, and also with from our university. I'm Ulda Borjas, I'm Chief Department Chair for the School of Social Work. We have the pleasure of sharing, there's so many things that we could say about our involvement in this topic in Honduras, since it's a transit country and also a country with over 1 million Honduran citizens in the U.S. And we also have, unfortunately, fatalities and things like that. So from the School of Social Work, since last year, we have been promoting a project among the schools of social work in our university and UTRGV, where, we have started the process with students of professional internships from both schools, so that we can stress these issues on a local level with the most return immigrants, which is the information, the data that we have. Statistics don't really reflect what's actually going on. But we're barely getting started in a couple towns like Libertad, Comanagua, and also Santa Barbara, as well as working with some organizations like NGOs, international agencies, institutions like the Red Cross. We are coordinating and also working on forced migration due to violence, And we're also conducting some research through the courses of social demography, where we're covering this topic. So we are very, very excited, and really we are hoping that next year we could be able to present some of the results that we are obtaining, and holistic approach through these efforts on the local level for immigration issues. So we want to reach all those places and have some proposals for intervention plans, since we know there's so many challenges in social work. First off, financing. We know that countries like ours, because of budgeting issues, it's very complex. There's so many things that we would like to do in social work, and when we see these issues that lead to deeper problems, we tell ourselves, well, we would like to do so much, but due to budget constraints and political willingness, there's only so much we can do as academics, as scholars. We can do research in these spaces and establish these cooperations with different schools of social work abroad. And we are very glad to meet colleagues with experiences that will add to our own knowledge at the university. We are very willing to cooperate. We have more than 1,500 students. We have a new curriculum that will strengthen the research capabilities, methodology, and intervention, as well as redesigning our own social work master's program, which is an effort that we are cooperating with UTRGV to establish a kind of like exchange program, a bilingual program where we can share some efforts. And that's the way how I think it's my time up. I know we could go on and on. You have a couple more minutes. Well, later on we'll have time to ask specific questions. So I think with this, you can familiarize yourselves with what we're doing at my university in Honduras. Thank you. Thank you, Hulda. Borja, the work that you are doing with your students in these communities is fantastic. Even more so because Honduras is like the epicenter for the immigration waves over to our country. And this is significant because we are working on this immigration issue, but at the same time, you're motivating the youth, like the young people that you are educating to, to consider the implications of leaving the country. So we are very happy to take part in this effort. And thank you for the friendship and the cooperation. Francisco Losornio from Loyola Chicago, are you here? Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Francisco. I am going to present my PowerPoint. It's a single slide. There it goes. In the spirit of bilingualism, I am going to start in Spanish and then I'm going to finish off in English.
Spanish and transition into English. I hope that's okay with all of you. Gracias por la invitación a presentar.
Thank you so much for the invitation to present in this conference. It's an honor to join you today representing Loyola University. The School of Social Work. I am the director of our master's program. We have a bilingual Spanish-English master program in social work at Loyola. This bilingual program is focused in immigration as well as mental health. The courses focus especially into aspects. We have policies and the practical aspects as well. This program was launched in fall 2018. There was unmet need for mental health services and physical health for immigrant populations, refugees, and Latinos in the U.S. There's no doubt about that. Here in Chicago, the wait list for Latino immigrants to receive mental health services is around 6, 7, 9 months wait. The contributing factors to this need include barriers to access, lack of services, and lack of bilingual professionals. The objective, the goal of this program is to meet those needs, recruiting Latino students, bilingual, bicultural, and prepare them for a workforce. In addition to this, 100% of our instructors are bilingual and bicultural, and they teach in both English and Spanish. The training of these students in social work is learned in the classroom through lectures, discussion, in class, assignments, group projects, and also field practice. Field work is a practical experience focused on gaining practical experience working directly with immigrant communities in general, as well as Latino immigrants in particular. The concentration for immigration studies has a long tradition, 14 years. There's a minor in 3 groups in order to prepare social work professionals to practice internationally, transnationally, and domestically. And here is where we're going to transition.
In terms of student training, students have study abroad opportunities to learn more about migration from the perspective of the country of origin, transit, destination, and return. Students who select this opportunity can learn about migration experientially and receive graduate credit towards a Master's of Social Work degree. For example, our program offers a 2-way field exchange program that offers Loyola Bachelor of Social Work students and Master of Social Work students migration-focused summer block internships in Mexico and other borders. Mexican students from Jesuit universities in Mexico City, Puebla, Guadalajara complete semester-long internships at local community-based organizations here in Chicago, while participants in the Loyola University School of Social Work Migration courses alongside our Bachelor's in Social Work and Master's Social Work students. This program has been offered for 16 years, and more than 200 students have participated in the field practicum abroad. Brief immersion classes have been offered for the last 14 years, and virtually, of course, during the pandemic. The classes integrate Loyola students and students from sister Jesuit institutions in Mexico. The short-term immersion includes a spring break border immersion in Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Sonora, Mexico. And this year, my colleague, Dr. Maria Vidal de Heims, and I will be traveling to Tijuana, the US border, with students from our Masters of Social Work program. This course focuses on the current situation on the border with individuals seeking asylum and individuals that have been deported. Students understand the complexity of border areas, migration crisis situations, and complexity of interstate relationships and policies in the region. A 2-week course in Mexico City in partnership with various universities, research centers, humanitarian aid and advocacy, NGOs, and faith-based work addressing migration in this region, combines lectures and service opportunities. Our School of Social Work program has established a long-standing partnership with immigrant rights organizations and immigrant-serving community-based organizations on a local, national, and international base in order to provide our students with internship opportunities. And finally, we have CIRA, led by our distinguished professor, Dr. Maria Vidal de Heims. CIRA is a migration-focused center that has 4 focal points. C for curriculum, innovation, and professional developments. I for interdisciplinary international research, R for residence program for scholars, and A for accompaniment and advocacy. And this concludes my presentation. Gracias, doctor.
Gracias a usted. Thank you so much appreciated.
Sabemos que los colegas de Loyola Chicago.
We know our Loyola colleagues do an excellent job with immigration in one of the biggest cities in the US, actually the 3rd one. And we're following closely all your achievements, and we are learning so much from what you're doing, Dr. Vidal, so we are very thankful for that. Director of Nuevo León, Miss Laura. If you're here, go ahead. Well, of course, thank you so much, Doctor. Greetings, everyone. Well, I concur with some of my colleagues, with most of the institutions represented here, because in our school, as well as the rest of them, our main goal, as we all know, is to educate social workers, to train them. But we also acknowledge the significance of being close to society with institutions, especially in anything related to immigration. This has been a very important point for our school. Indeed, we have professional internships, community internships, and experiences for students, where we try to have students visit these institutions. We have specific MOUs with different institutions involved in this topic, and students as well as faculty and researchers attend these areas. Additionally, we also have a learning unit within our curriculum plan in English, which is specifically immigration studies, not only to raise awareness with students, which are social workers in training, but also to have them get involved in the topic, the strategies, the possibility of also working projects on the topic. We also have MOUs with other universities, both here and abroad, which allow us to conduct research and joint projects to serve populations, vulnerable populations in this immigration topic. Additionally, in addition to all of this, we currently have an MOU with one of our academic bodies in relation to this topic. It's a research topic. We have specific agreements with institutions, and well, this specific project, with the participation of yourself, Dr. Luis, is a project where CONACYT is also involved, which concerns not only research, but also we want to promote strategies or activities within organizations serving the immigrant populations. This is one of the projects that we are conducting. And one of our biggest achievements with this project is its relationship, partnership with different institutions. One of them is the health department. And we are also, I'm sorry, Luis, we do a study health among migrants, and we want to do this on an institutional level in the country. So all of these are efforts conducted by our faculty and research team, not only within research itself, but also in interventions. We want to take these efforts, the scholarly efforts, on a high level, because these are high-level researchers who are participating in this project, but we also want to blend all this knowledge and experience and apply it to intervention models where we can actually show some benefit for the immigrant population. So for us, this is a great achievement. It's a great effort. It's not easy to be in agreement with all these institutions, not only in academia, but also government organizations, civil society organizations who are involved in the immigration problem. As we all know, the issue that the immigrants have, there's no gain in as far as productivity finance goes, well, not everybody, we cannot communicate, like stress enough, like the importance of the immigration problem in Monterrey. We already have an significant amount of foreign immigrants. In addition to internal domestic immigrants, we have foreign immigrants which has impacted, have the health issues, work issues, space issues, creating conflict within the population. So social workers, based on these projects, and I want to take the opportunity to congratulate my colleagues working in this project, because their work has been exceptional. It's been a really, different. It sets the tone, this project, not only for social work, as far as intervention goes in the immigration topic. So, well, congratulations, everyone. And some of our colleagues nationally are involved in this. Thank you so much, Doctor. Well, thanks to you. For us, it's an immense honor to be part of this group and the significant effort. And as we keep hearing, everyone within each respective institution is making the effort. And this is the hope with this discussion group, that we can come together, leave our differences behind in like discipline, all the things that get in the way, and that we all can work together. This is such a complex issue that we need everyone to come together from our respective institutions to be able to do what we have to do. So thank you so much for inviting us to cooperate. And for us, I speak on behalf of myself, on behalf of my whole school. It's wonderful to be able to cooperate with you. Thank you so much. It's an honor. Well, likewise. So now we have Dawn McCarthy. She was a little bit delayed. She's director of the Department of Social Work in Houston University downtown. And Dawn does not speaks a little bit in Spanish, but she's going to present in English.
It's about what we're doing on the topic of migration or work with immigrant communities from our programs and from our spaces. So if you can go on for 5 minutes.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here right now. I split my time, or really I sort of merge my time between the University of Houston downtown, where I am a founder and a director of the social work, the BSW social work program there. We're in the process of developing an MSW. And but really my heart and a bulk of my time is spent here at Casa Juan Diego. So I am the pro bono social worker, but I live in community here at Casa Juan Diego. It's the Houston Catholic Worker. I'll speak a little slower, sorry. And we serve the unauthorized community, folks coming right across the border, and the established community here in Houston, right? We've had for decades people coming to the United States without opportunities to gain any type of status. And so we work directly with that community, and we offer food to 1,000 families. We distribute food to 1,000 families a month, and we house on any given night at Casa Juan Diego we're trying to, as much as possible, receive people out of detention. So that's our main goal. And so we, or folks at the border who don't have a sponsor right now. So we are receiving many people from around the world in that situation. And so, but on any given night, we are housing at least 100 people in our shelter. We call them houses of hospitality. We're a Catholic worker house, which is a very different model. And so it's kind of like the air I breathe, right? And so as far as sort of connection to our program, we have lots of connections with our program because I've of course been around here for a bit, and so we have field practicum opportunities as much as possible, and other opportunities for students to be with me at Casa Juan Diego, and we're looking for more. That's why I'm so excited about today and being invited here. We want to do more. That's really my whole goal is to get connected with all of you and to see how we can use our program. Our students are remarkable. The downtown campus is different. We are very welcoming and very inclusive, and it's just such a much safer environment for a lot of students to feel that come to us, who may be their status, they may be dreamers, or they may be unauthorized themselves, or they may have certainly family members that are unauthorized. And so we are a very safe place for them. And so our students right now are probably 75% Spanish speaking. Spanish is their first language. And so we have this beautiful, rich opportunity of student potential that we spend really all our time trying to develop and to enhance. So we are really interested in partnership and looking for opportunities to be connected. Let's see. So for me, I started my journey just very quickly in my academic journey in Mexico. So I spent over 2 years in Mexico. I was very fortunate to have some very stable funding for a bit, and working with families and living in communities where there had been a lot of out-migration, and really spending time and learning about what happened to the families left behind in their mainly rural communities. This was pretty close, post-NAFTA influence on rural communities in Mexico. And so I have so much gratitude for that experience and all the families. And I just some longitudinal work over years, and revisiting communities and revisiting families, and sort of getting a sense of that experience, and from the view of the country and from the individuals and the families. And then when I came to Houston, I got recruited here to start the BSW program at UH downtown. I started working with Casa Juan Diego, and so I've been here now 14 years, and so I'm sort of immersed in the experience of new migrant persons to this country. And I'm so grateful. I'm so ready to get more connected with everyone here today. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Torres, for inviting me.
Thank you for being with us, Donna. I have so much admiration for the work that you do. So it's just wonderful to have you here with us. So, la Casa Juan Diego de que hablaba la doctora McCarthy fue fundada por dos
by two missionaries to El Salvador in the time of the Civil War, and initially they received a lot of people from El Salvador coming to the U.S. as refugees from a war zone with a TPS, right, that they were granted. So I would like to go to El Salvador, but I don't know if we have two colleagues from El Salvador, Marta de Solano, Dean for the School of Theology and Humanities, where the Social Work Department is housed, and also Sandra Ventura, registered for University Andres Bello. I don't know if they are here with us. I'm here, Dr. Torres. Sandra, how are you? Well, first I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this 7th conference of social work and immigration. For us, besides a great honor, it's a commitment to attend here today. My participation is always a collective construct where researchers participate, which, they are the ones who are working more closely in this immigration issue, fellow faculty as well as students. As far as the first question goes, what is it that we're doing? I can share with you that as our colleague from Honduras shared, this year we are implementing already a new curriculum plan plan study program with an emphasis in intervention with a transversal axis of gender, immigration, and human rights. From this perspective, we create, like we have different courses. One is for intervention with immigrant populations, and we also have other components for immigrant care in our curriculum. And from that, we can generate the following actions. I can also share with you that we have educational programs for human rights for immigrants and returning immigrants to El Salvador, because our university is located next to the regions with more immigration influx, Chalatenango, San Miguel, Morazán, Cuscutan, and La Unión, whose populations we serve in compliance with the social belonging that any higher education institution should devote themselves to. And this is why we participate in actions from intervention to research. As I just mentioned, we have participation from social projection programs, research from faculty as well as students. And we also have an social intervention program to work with returning immigrants and their families, because this is an issue that affects our country, because according to the figures from 2018 to 2021, our country received more than 80,000 returning immigrants, most of them coming from North America, but also people returning from Italy, Spain, and when they go back to their towns of origins to retake again, to get used to the financial work, social dynamics, it's such a challenge for them because they've been away for so long, and going back to these dynamics is hard for them. So this is what we as institution are working on, from the degree of social work, the legal sciences, the master's program of, we are also working from the entrepreneurial and economics school. And also we are conducting research emphasizing mostly the study of the issues that returning immigrants go through. This is what we as institution are working on, and in order to do that, we are cooperating with national and international agencies, with populations that want to participate in this work, because this issue affects everyone, so much so that these departments, these regions are the ones with the most returning immigrant population, and also who, where people immigrate to the U.S. and returning immigrants as well. Thank you so much, my colleagues. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Sandra. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Thanks for accepting the invite. We are going back to Mexico. This is a tour of the Southern Hemisphere. Dr. Martin, are you here with us? Yeah, I'm still around. Well, go ahead. The floor is yours. Well, within as part of the National Academy of Research in Social Work, ACAMEX, which I'm like a founding partner. We've been working on this 11 years, promoting participation from researchers in social work. This is an institution which, right now we are working on topic like networks, these networks, we have a national conference in social work research, from practice to families to immigration. And these are some of the topics that we work on, that we cover in the conference. And additionally, what we are interest or specialization in research, it's worth noting that we have 7 researchers, and now we have more than 80 researchers from 7 that we started with. It's also worth noting how these researchers are part of the national research network in CONACYT on different levels, from candidates to level 2. We don't have any level 3 researchers, but we have the idea of the goal of going toward that objective. In 2014, we have around 14 researchers, and currently we have more than 50 researchers in the national research system. Well, in academia, we don't only have a space where we can promote and strengthen researching in social work, but we also have developed other activities with equal significance, which are equally important. It's equally worth noting how we work jointly with CAMIX and RENIX. So we also participate in these 2 social work networks on a national level. And we task ourselves with, since 2016 onward, in order to promote this research space, which was the first binational conference on immigration. To stress RENIX, RENIX sponsored that. And nowadays we have the 7th, we're celebrating the 7th binational conference, which is not only binational, it's now a regional conference with the participation of social workers, not only from the US, but also Mexico, different higher education institutions, as well as Central America, with our sister universities that also play an important role. I think this regional meeting is very important at the end of the day, not only because we can discuss, because we can also document our conversations. In 2017, we had the first publication for the binational network. And I think you're going forward little by little. Not only important to discuss these topics, but also these books, these publications with these topics related to immigration are topics that should show up in content, as well as like libraries. The content of like curriculum programs, study programs, as well as the books and publications that we develop from these meetings, that this will show up in like a physical or electronic form in writing. I think that is also important, and this is what we have tasked ourselves within the last few months of promoting and strengthening a network that we think is crucial for, as far as Mexico goes, with its network for social work and immigration. I think last week we created the International Social Work Network. But we are currently strengthening this network, which I consider important. I think if we could strengthen organization and participation from social workers in research on immigration, and to that end, in the first meeting that we had this year in Monterrey, it was already like, it already came to fruition. And I think like going forward, Carmen Casas will take the lead on this topic, which I think is very important. And then in as far as we can strengthen the research network on immigration and social work, this will in turn be very important for Mexico, because as researchers, we are going to have the tools to grow and strengthen the immigration topic. And this will in turn affect the curriculum, study programs for any higher education institutions, at least in Mexico. This is what I can participate with RENIEX and REMIEX. We are trying to strengthen these processes, the organization of researchers in social work and immigration here in Mexico. Thank you very much for allowing me to participate. Likewise, Dr. Martin, congratulations for the new network. I'm always saying that this is such a complex topic that we need all the groups that we can form and create. We just have to find a way to work together, to cooperate. Before going to the next person, I think Pedro Isnardo raised their hand. Well, thank you so much. I want to especially thank all the previous participants. And now, Dr. Castro, as president of CACANITS, if we could maybe work on, because he mentioned Ms. Carmen Casa, what do you think about this possibility of publishing a book on the regional conference? Well, thank you so much. It's something that is confirmed. We are committed to develop this. As Dr. Martin Castro said, all these contributions, how crucial these conferences have been with time. And all the directors and deans, the interest in analyzing this topic, this has allowed us to go beyond, not only going beyond a binational conference, but going on up to a regional conference. So the commitment on everyone's part, of course, under the sponsorship of the School of Social Work, National School of Social Work, I want to see this reflected in some kind of publication. Thank you so much, Director. And indeed, Dr. Torres indicated all the participants in this discussion reflects a spirit of cooperation. And I would like to emphasize, because it's the first time that our regional conference is attended by, we have some training, research stays, projects, as well as projects with the different master's programs with the School of Social Work in the University of Calgary. So I am very pleased to introduce Dr. Ellen Ferrell, who is joining us today. And Dr. Luis, if we can, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Ellen, and I'm the Dean in the Faculty of Social Work at the University of Calgary in the province of Alberta in Canada. And I'm very grateful for being here. I'm going to put our webpage on the chat there. I'm on Indigenous lands here in the southern area of the province of Alberta in Canada on Treaty 7. And we have over 1,000 students in our program. We have BSW, MSW, Ph.D. students. We have 46 academics. And we've adopted a new strategic plan for the next 5 years. I'll just put that in the chat as well. And as part of that plan, we have several of our faculty researchers who are conducting groundbreaking global research to respond to global challenges. We're currently creating a new BSW curriculum that includes immigration topics. And I'm delighted to say that we have present with me today our assistant professor, Dr. Monica Sesma. And thank you, Monica. Good to see you. And Professor Dr. Christine Walsh. Good to see you, Christine. Thank you for joining me here. I'll also indicate that we have a international and community development specialization masters. I'll put the link to that, more information in the chat. To provide you with a background, Canada is facing a significant labor shortage. We have over 1 million vacant jobs across Canada, and immigrants and permanent residents now account for almost 25% of the population. And that's not slowing. The Canadian federal government is planning an increase in the number of immigrants entering Canada with a goal of bringing in 500,000 people in 2025. And so we have this increase happening as well, not only with immigrants and newcomers, but also in terms of refugees. I'm just going to put the article of the Canadian announcement in the chat. We know that 60% of newcomers to Canada are not accessing the services that they need because it's a pretty complex system and challenging to navigate. We know that in Calgary, of those that were not accessing services, 80% were unaware or confused about what was available to them. So traditionally in Calgary, the settlement sector was siloed, with each organization functioning very individually rather than in coordination with one another. So for newcomers entering the city, that meant there was no real path showing which services to access and when. And so we had many newcomers fall through the cracks. And so I'd like to highlight today our Gateway Knowledge Hub as an example of changing the system. Our faculty has been involved in a community-based and community needs-focused collaborative effort, and Dr. Christine Walsh was a founder of this effort, which began with a collaborative community research network about 4 years ago. And in 2021, a nonprofit agency called Immigrant Services Calgary and several community partners launched the collaboration called Gateway. I'm just going to put that in the chat here so you can go to that page for more information. I think you might find it of interest. The goal is to better serve and support newcomers who choose to make Alberta home. And we ensure immigrants and refugees are connected to the best fit programs and services. So only 4 in 10 newcomers to Canada are accessing support services. And together with our partners, we want to grow that number to 8. And let me also let you know that we have just hired in a year ago now, Dr. Ajwang Waria to co-lead a new research team with that community agency that started Gateway. The Newcomer Knowledge Hub will build from a repository that we have for aggregated and anonymous newcomer data and the mechanism that allows for learning and sharing among researchers, educators, policymakers, funders, donors, and practitioners to improve the Gateway system to better serve newcomers. And our partners together in the Knowledge Hub work together with national, provincial, municipal agencies, and staff within those agencies are trained in the newcomer experience. And so that hub leverages the experiences of an advisory council, which has academics, policymakers, decision makers, service providers, and people with lived experience in settlement. And I'm just hoping that you may get a sense of an interest in joining us as a team. We're conducting research in the area of to start with, that data set collected as part of the Gateway assessment system, but we're also looking at how do we change policy, how do we connect globally, and see that as our 3 to 5 year goal. So I'm going to put the names of our co-leaders and their emails of the Gateway Knowledge Hub in the chat. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I look forward to a further conversation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peralta, and welcome to this group. We're delighted to have new institutions, new countries always joining us. It's an ever-growing cast of characters, and this phenomenon is so complex and just cuts across so many of our countries. So we really are excited to have you here. Thank you. Vamos a pasar de Canadá, nos vamos de regreso a El Salvador. Está con nosotros la decana Marta de Solano de la Facultad de Humanidades y Teología. Adelante, decana.
Solano, good morning. Thank you for the invite. As Lutheran University, we want to thank Dr. Torres for inviting us to this very significant meeting. He knows very well the efforts that our university conducts on immigration topics. And I'd like to share with you how this cycle 2022-2023, we have a brand new curriculum for the degree of social work. And within that, we have immigration topics as a transversal axis for all the courses. Why? Because of the significance of this topic, as we have just seen. We understand how complex this is. And as social workers, what are we doing on this subject, which is what we have been developing through these events? Well, in professional practice, our students conduct very important work in their communities. Turns out that when they understand, get to know the causes for the immigration issue here in El Salvador, we understand that in our country, one of the important factors currently is the reunification topic, and also the financial situation for the families. We found how in many towns and many areas, rural areas here in the country, there are many young people who want to immigrate, especially to the US. And this in turn has led us to work more intensely with these youth who do not want to get educated. They don't look for work because for them the opportunities are limited, who have financial difficulties to pursue higher education. So with them, we are addressing in our practice entrepreneurship, because where they live, contributes to being able to being entrepreneurial or not. And this as a preventive measure, as minimal as it might be, but we are instructing them in like these different towns, these different areas among like youth population. And as far as training for our students go, being immigration a focal point in our curriculum, we are addressing it from faculties, in the different courses, in research. We are also researching this topic in practice, of course. We are also emphasizing our work, and also in the area I was very interested in like the keynote speaker who was talking about like in social work, we have identified that the effect on mental health for returning immigrants, returning families. We know this is significant as far as health goes, to address this issue and make efforts on that regard. We are also committed to intervention to have an impact. Our students are more and more aware about like this. They're interested in research and see what we can do in their different towns and regions of origin. It's also very important to work on this level of academia so that we can develop important proposals, important options. We want to continue with this effort. We are very interested, and we want to thank again Dr. Torres for including us. And we are very willing to continue working on it. Thanks, everyone. And we are hopeful that this will be a true success for our communities. And as somebody already mentioned, that we can help these people in transit, that we can really find options to this immigration phenomenon. Good morning, everyone, and thanks everyone again. Thank you so much, Dean Solano. I haven't been to El Salvador since before the pandemic, so I miss a pulgarcito and some go pupusas, so we'll see you soon, God willing. We're not going to go very far away, and we're going far away at the same time. The next participant is going to be our colleague, Dr. Ana Luisa Fernandez from the research group Distance Learning University in Costa Rica, but she's joining us from Germany. So Dr. Ana Luisa, go ahead. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is Ana Lucia, but like, you know, no problem. I am very pleased to accept your invite from Dr. Susi, from Dr. Torres. I am representing because our university does not have a School of Social Work, but we have formed an interdisciplinary group, very, quite special, particular, from different people from different disciplines working on the immigration topic on a research level at our university. So we have like 4 instances of like meeting. We are trying to consolidate this effort. We got started last year, and we have also participated in the creation of the International Observatory on Immigration, where some of you participate. So we are very excited about this process. And our part, we have devoted ourselves a lot on the study of immigration, like transit immigration in Costa Rica, because we know that in our country, there's a lot of like immigrant population from 2018 onward because of everything happening in Nicaragua. We've seen an exponential increase in refugees due to the political issues. So we have mostly been addressing this situation, studying it. We, as our colleague, we've been doing research on social health and mental health among displaced families. And we also want to address this subject as a group, the topic of researching immigration research in Central America from Central American point of view. That is like one of our goals. We want to conduct a seminar on like immigration. Once we have more information on the topic, we will share with everyone, because we are mostly interested in immigration in Central America from Central America. So, because I know that people in the U.S., Mexico, there's a lot of research on this, but we want to consolidate the further south perspective in our region. I am very pleased to be able to share with you. I'm hoping that we can continue meeting and cooperating, and on my behalf, that's everything. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, Dr. Eva Moya from UTEP, another border town here in who was planning to join us, she hasn't been able to. She wrote me this morning because she has some scheduling problems. You know how that goes, right? So the dean, the director, the department chair, you know, the president is the one who makes the decision, so we understand. And if she can join us before we finish, we'll let her talk. The last two people presenting before we go on the conversation is Dr. Susie Villegas, Director for International Social Work at our university, so she can share about some of what we're doing at UTRGV. And before we go on to the conversation, we have Director Carmen Casas from the National School of Social Work. Susie, go ahead. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? I'm very pleased to see you. It's very nice to be able to have another opportunity to meet your event that is getting stronger every year, and we can start seeing some of the results of all the efforts. So I'm very pleased to join everyone. Well, as you know, as most of you know, we started with the international project at our school. I think it's the second year since Dr. Torres came as dean. So it was a little bit after that, but we have been very active in this project, and we have achieved some goals. We have been very active in creating collaborations with all of you, with our colleagues in Latin America and other countries. So we have developed these relationships with universities in Mexico, Nueva León, UNAM. We are very glad to be able to visit you soon, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, universities in Coahuila, Tamaulipas, and many other colleagues interested, like, you know, around the different countries here within the US, in the University of Boston, and other programs that we're working with. We have also been working in developing relationships with international agencies like the Red Cross, like help groups like the Rotaries, because we have seen the support that they can provide in cooperating on a local level in each country that we are working with on the immigration issue. Also, some of the other programs that we have developed with a very intentional way is the development of the bilingual social work master's program. We are, like, you know, 6 miles away from the border with Mexico, very close here in Edinburgh, in Laredo, as well as Brownsville. So we are right there at the border, and our student population is fluent in Spanish, and both languages are spoken in integrated way. So we have made the effort to develop a bilingual program. We are already offering SOAR courses in that format, and this is an intentional way in order to break down the barriers to cooperate and work jointly in projects important for the region. Also, other projects that we have worked on are at school. We now have a Human Mobility Center, which you'll find out more about later. It's a center for development of intervention and research programs. We have also participated or facilitating our faculty or student population to participate in with some of the universities that we are cooperating with, especially with the universities in Honduras, or colleagues in Nuevo León and other places. And we were able to visit them for a week in Honduras, visiting the area with help and cooperation and supervising our projects. Now, next week, we are going to be visiting UNAM, and we are very excited about meeting everyone and hopefully being able to plant the seed and see them flourish and join projects that will help in this regard. We are also currently exploring the possibility of training, helping, see if we can get involved in assistance to social workers so they can, our students here or there, if it's possible, to the people leaving the Ukraine. So we've researching other venues, see if we can have visiting scholars from other universities. So we are hoping to eventually have some of you over here as visiting scholars. We have so far people from Turkey and Mexico, so we would love to have many of you joining us here to sometime. What else? Is there anything else I'm missing, Dr. Torres? Excellent. Well, thank you. Those are some of like the highlights and projects, and we are very excited about continuing participating, cooperating with all of you in any work that we can do on this topic. The work plan, like 50 activities that you're going to be doing like this here next week, Dr. Susie. Yes, we are so very excited. When we have planned it better, we would like live on a caravan. So we have 11 people from here. We have people from Coahuila, Nuevo León. So next time we'll do it that way. Carmen, Dr. Eva Moya just joined. So if she can speak before Eva, thanks for joining us. I was just telling the group that you might not be able to connect because you were dealing with some scheduling problems. I'm very, very glad that you were able to join. So what we're doing is like share for 5 minutes what we are doing on the immigration topic from our programs, and then we'll go into the conversation. Wonderful. So, well, I think I came at the right time. Good morning, afternoon, everyone. I'm Eva Moya. I'm a social worker. I've been trained as a social worker. I'm from the border. I was trained in Mexico, and life brought me for back and forth every day and weekly between Mexico and the United States. My practical training was on the undergrad level in Mexico. So I learned social work in the community. So now I have the honor to be an interim chair, which would be like, like interim chair of the bachelor's and master's program at UTEP. For those colleagues, we are the epicenter. We are really half of the border between the US and Mexico that unites two programs. We are receptive focus. So this is wonderful for our immigrant brothers and sisters. So we've been on the international map, international media during the last few months. We have these peaks and valleys where we are in the European media or local media, community like ours, about 1 million residents and 1 million over on the Juarez side. This is a very important focus, attracting and showing the reality that many of our brothers or sisters are stuck at the border. So what should social work do? 85% of our student population are Hispanic origin, mostly Mexico. And there's a slight percentage of African American students and even less indigenous population student body, and a slight percentage of Anglo students. So our program emphasizes the border. Our professional practice right now is unlike the American side. However, I keep fighting, and we're in talks with our colleagues from Autonomous University in Ciudad Juarez. We started our conversations with our colleagues from a university in Guadalajara as well, to start exploring again practices that are more international. We are also the hotspot for students from, we have students from Wyoming or Chicago or other areas who want to know more about the border area, and we give them the warmest of welcome so that their experience is enriching. We bring our classes to the border. If we cannot cross the border to Mexico, I can do that. Most of our faculty can, maybe because of like paperwork or insecurity or whatever. So those of us who can go back and forth bring with us our experiences and integrate it to curricula and research. There are no border or walls that can separate us in spite of what politics might want to do. We are very effective in going into research with our Mexican counterparts, and we have developed projects from, where we work with mainly with adults, migrant adults who identify as trans, who are stuck, really stuck, and then they free themselves. Like once there's policies, they can start crossing, and they have started documenting the reality, their challenges, their what they're facing. So we always look for our counterparts in other cities, states, countries, in order to move forward in social work. We also have what else? We don't have a Ph.D. program. That's the next step for us, reaffirmation next week. And after that, we want a Ph.D. in social work, emphasizing the border reality. I'm dying to make this a reality. And what else? In research, we are conducting some very interesting research. One of them is like food security, or rather like food insecurity in the campus community. We are a mostly Hispanic campus, first generation. Our admissions are 100% of students are admitted to UTEP, and our food insecurity degree is very high, and great situation for housing. So social work is working boots on the ground with food security, with international students. We've been collecting data for 5 years in our campus with instruments that we are perfecting, and we are very eager to share that data with other universities in order for it to document it, to become evidence and then incidents. We work a lot with homelessness, or people living on the streets, shelters, cancer prevention, the HPV, also mental health. We work a lot with public housing, CPS. We are training the CPS, the workers generation, so they can get some training on social work and they can protect children. These are some of, and a lot with promotores, of course. We are great allies of like the training for promotores de salud, community health workers. I don't know if that's enough, Luis, or not. Yes, thank you so much. I'm very pleased that you were able to join. As you all can see, our colleagues, students, professors, all the people joining us today, as well as those joining from YouTube. It's an extraordinary group doing great work, and if we all work together, the sky is the limit. As you all can see as well, for our colleagues in Latin America and other parts of the world who are joining us today, I hope you have noticed that those of us who are over here working together, we are united by a cultural humbleness. We don't have that colonialist lens where we know how to do things and we're better than anyone. When we work with our colleagues from the South, we are humble. We're here to learn, to share experiences. So we are very excited to continue establishing these relationships. And last but not least, we're going to have our house or leader, our friend, Carmen Casas from Lights. Carmen, please go ahead. Well, thanks everyone, dear Luis. I just want to share with you again, I am very pleased, I'm very thankful for you joining us today in this introductory session, to listening to a great keynote speaker in a topic that I see how it moved us in some of the aspects he indicated, Dr. Corzo, which gives us, points the way to go and confirms that most of what we have been working on so far, articulating these synergies surrounding all these countries participating in this regional conference, I think we are doing pretty well. Additionally, with all the participation of everyone, and In order to like not take too long, I'm not going to mention any names, but Nuevo León, Amets, Acanitz here in Mexico City, in Coahuila, Chiapas, of course, Rio Grande, which like truly Dr. Torres, Torres, with this whole network of work that has been conducted so far from colleagues in different countries, I think that this has allowed us to continue strengthening in a very solid way everything, as well as the program from the University of Chicago, Loyola, Houston, El Salvador, from our dear friends and colleagues, sisters in these countries that have joined us in this and other topics. But when we listen to each other, we see ourselves reflected in that, all attending this session, this conference, and of course, this exchange of ideas, projects, efforts, strategies, incentives that would allow us to keep going forward firmly, which I think is something that in social work, we need a lot in these networks. Of course, in Salvador, thank you so much. And the welcome, of course, for Dr. Helen Roth from Calgary, who's joining us from Canada with a great team as well. And she is joining us in this work that we have developed so far. And we are expecting everyone, there's still time to buy your plane tickets to come over here to Mexico City to our higher education institution. Will be very honored to welcome you. And truly, as Dr. Torres was saying, this scholarly work, this events that we are organizing with the colleagues that will be joining him from UTRGV will be amazing. I'm not saying this for nothing. It is going to be a very specific work with students, with associations like Civil Service Association, with other organizations, with different from academia, from research, as well as groups, population groups in shelters, in transit, and who will be cooperating and working for and with them. So I can truly say, confirm that the strength of our program for this conference, the 7th regional conference right now, is very strong. And the strength comes from this relationship that we motivate us and give us this identity from a social work perspective. So I am very happy. And as far as the question goes, this is part of what we have been developing since, for many years, 7 years to be exact, with the proposal that was developed since from the network. This was like planted there from the School of Social Work, but because of this concern of like these directors and deans to organize this binational conference, then regional, multinational conferences, and now regional conference, where we have been able to strengthen our relationship and cooperation, as well as these bonds among our institutions. I truly think there's some like unresolved top issues, like in what the product that we generate from our conferences, maybe some publishing of a book. I think this is something that could be co-published to make it stronger. If it was too complicated and we could do it from our own school, we'd gladly do that, make the effort to put it to fruition. It's a very important cooperation that would go beyond and stress the importance of the work we do. I would also like to share with you that since 2014, speaking of what we've been doing so far, I would like to go into parts from RENIET, from the National Network of Higher Education Institutions, as well as the School of Social Work, which I direct. We had these synergies in the what everything has contributed, because we cannot separate these from other things that we have learned, especially in training future social workers, in modifying our programs to strengthen our research lines or curricula on the undergrad and the graduate levels as well. This is one of the topics that we are considering right now in order to create a new PhD program in social work at UNAM. Those of you who know our school and our this is our 50th anniversary as school, so you know the PhD program has been in an aspiration for us, a goal for us as a School of Social Work. So some of these topics that we've been addressing so far have to do with what we are addressing today. So since 2014 as well, it's part of the Casa Refugiados program with Gerardo Talavera, who shared some comments on the keynote speaker. So we've been working with him and Jose Luis Loera, great individuals who are not ceasing to stop working with immigrants, with displaced groups, in transit groups. So this has led us to identify some processes in training, specialization in social service, and interinstitutional seminars, of course, research stays, which in turn has led to other MOUs, which this space that we're in right now will give way to. Like, we've been able to develop 3 MOUs within this framework, which has been suddenly very complicated on the legal part, but that has not stopped us, because the work continues in spite of this policy framework, which is necessary, but not an obstacle nonetheless to keep going forward. 2 years ago, we also we started like a permanent seminar on violence that prevent the integration of childhood and migrant children and youth in societies that discriminates among immigrant populations. This is a very strong topic that we have been working on under the coordination of a full professor as a postdoc stay, Dr. Ana Luz Minero, along with Dr. Javier Carrion, who have been setting the tone for this topic, as well as another theme on gender violence among immigrant groups from the Center for Gender Studies under Dr. Julia del Carmen Chavez. In 2022, several research studies were approved for full professor at the school, tenure track, transcultural studies on immigration from Mexico, talent transfer from Mexico to the US and Europe, and with predictive data through media, press, and agenda establishment. I think that's a very strong topic as well. And post-disaster recovery in Mexico, civil, which other tenure track professor has been developing, as well as other topics that should not be set aside, such as human trafficking, children and teenagers, and violence and that they suffer, of course, and going more into the reference given by Dr. Corzo, the effects of the pandemic and other pandemics that we are affected with that should be identified within these population groups, homeless people, or people with other particular issues. On the other hand, as Dr. Martin Castro was just sharing, I want to share with you, and I think we'll have the opportunity to see in a very specific way this proposal that was established in the last meeting from the network that has to do specifically with the Immigration Network on Social Work, for which I want to congratulate some of the colleagues who participate in this network and truly acknowledging their work, which has led them, it took them about a year from establishing the basis, research, definition, in order to establish this research network. As Laura was sharing, my dear Laura, director from Nuevo León and secretary for the National Greniets, the synergy which we have been able to develop so that these research and study networks can go beyond their initial goals, that they have unparalleled significance because just with a little coordination in the efforts so that they can be a holistic effort towards our ultimate goal in order to have everything come to fruition. So I want to acknowledge the fact that we have this cooperation framework, this work network, this integralities so that we can obtain better results in everything we do. And also, it's also important to share that we were invited by Casa Refugiados to cooperate with them in a center, Sea Paz shelter, that they have been working on. We will have the formal opening when we have Dr. Torres group with some colleagues who have the intent to participate in order to know the word that we can, and continue insisting on cooperation. I don't want to take too much longer. This is just a little sample of what we've been doing so far with the cooperation and the participation of everyone, because otherwise it would not be possible. Lastly, I would like to call on the materialization through all this cooperation and relationships, since we're talking about all the work on the master's level, well, the in practice, school practices or internships in some of the spaces for people in training, both at the graduate and undergraduate level. I think this strengthens a lot stays, exchanges, cooperation, and efforts that would allow our students, our faculty. My apologies for taking ownership of everyone in this sense of harmony, but yes, all the communities who are joining us today and where we are located, so they have the opportunity to have this academic and research exchange. So that's so far my participation, and I think that right now we would need to have a participation for Lozano and Dr. Pedro Isnardo. I don't know, Dr. Luis, I think she already participated. Yes. Thank you, Director. We are very glad that we're living on Sunday. Welcome, everyone. We'll be expecting you here. It's going to be a fantastic week. Dr. Vidal has one of the questions that we want to throw at you, so for any of you who are still with us can answer it. Dr. Vidal from Loyola, Chicago. Well, thank you, Luis. I am very pleased to be able to greet everyone, our colleagues from Central America, Mexico, Canada, the US. And I want to thank the organizing committee for this exceptional program with exceptional speakers. And of course, thanks for those hosting the conference, Carmen Casas and Dr. Pedro Isardo de la Cruz. And thanks to all the speakers for sharing a brief overview of the important work that they're doing on this on immigration in their own universities. It's very impressive as well as necessary. I am very excited about the work this work is doing in order to involve schools in the region in a social work network on immigration. Now, I would like to ask everyone if you could share your wish, your hopes for this evolving network. What work lines would you prioritize for the network? As Dr. Torres said, the sky is the limit. But what I'm asking you is, where should we start, get started in research, publication, stays, exchanges for students, internships, innovation in curriculum, immigration policies. We have thousands of ideas, and many of you are already implementing some of them, but what I'm interested in is what will be the priority for you, for at least for this year? I don't know if we have time for answers, or if you want to do it on the chat, but that's the question I have. Thank you so much. Dr. Torres saved us 3 hours from the session because, John, this is the calm that we have, so I would like to share greetings from Saltillo, Coahuila, Chiapas, Campeche, Culiacán, Nuevo León, Costa Rica, Chile, Estados Unidos, United States. Thanks everyone for making this a reality. And yes, indeed, Ms. Carmen, Dr. Corzo says he's willing with, he already has his book chapter ready to send the extended version for the chapters. So we have the first draft for the book so that you can get your speakers motivated next week joining us. So please make this collective work a reality as a result of this conference. If you can, raise your hand, we'll let you speak and reply to the question from Dr. Vidal. Thanks, Dr. Vidal, for joining us today. Wonderful as usual.
Doctor Castro, ¿por dónde?
Doctor, if you would allow the question, could you repeat the question, please, Dr. Vidal? So the question I have is, what do you all think should be the priority for the network for this next year? I see one of the topics is the book that you all brought forward. So what is the way for this year, the priorities? Yes. Go ahead, Ms. Carmen. Well, if you allow me, going along the lines of the previous comment, I think that we should bring to life these research networks that have been generated with this synergy, identify the different topics and issues that we face from social work training, from research, and from intervention standpoint. Being knowing these different experiences, strategies, that within the next few days, we're going to be able to discuss from the different topics that we have touched upon in these 2 work days. We could form some work groups that will lead us to, from the research, take intervention, create intervention strategies. I think this is one of the ways in which we would not just be speaking about what, the different regions, spaces, universities are working on, but to articulate it as a group devoted to such sensitive topics in the different areas in which, we have been working on, to have a joint work agenda and maybe a joint research project that would allow us to, in the same way as this international network is sponsored, hosted by CONACYT, that there would be some kind of process that would allow us to define a scholarly project, a joint project that would allow us to go beyond. Of course, to strengthen cooperation in research projects. I think this is a responsibility and commitment and everyone's part as directors and deans, but also as scholars and researchers devoted to this topic. As I was saying, and I'll conclude with this, that being able to attract with our students, with our undergrad and grad students, through these exchanges and these stays and research stays, as well as joint work, I think this should strengthen a lot what we are doing, what we've been doing so far. I think these are some of the topics that we should take into account and even create an agenda, a joint agenda or a work agenda that will lead us towards the next regional conference with very tangible results. If we commit ourselves to 3 products of this relationship among all the institutions participating, to whatever the number is, but consistent enough and with the sequence that would allow us to have everything come together. Thank you. Thank you, Director. Yes, I resonate with what you're saying. James chapter 2 says, faith without works is dead. And with Iris going to hell for sacrilege, I think research without application is a crime. So paraphrasing that. So we can research immigration and all these topics until the end of times, right? But since the beginning, since the inception of the group, one of the main points was this intervention focus. So I want to repeat what Carmen said. We should commit ourselves to not only to this publication from the conference, but an edited volume with everyone who has submitted works during previous conferences around intervention, what they are doing in these communities, human mobility, and the effect, the impact, well-defined models so that other programs can implement, copy, borrow from them. So I strongly encourage you to focus on intervention on immigrant communities. We've been doing this for 7 years now. The next conference will be here in the Rio Grande Valley for the 8th conference. And we're looking for hosts for the 9th, 10th. But that's the commitment, and I'm committed to work with everyone who wants to participate in this volume, focus on models, and perhaps could be simultaneously published as we are used to, and maybe a scientific model, as a monograph, a scientific model. So that's our commitment on our part. Excellent. So I think Dr. Castro raised his hand. Yes, thank you so much. I think we should continue addressing individual research in every school and university in Mexico. We have researchers working on immigration, either from an international point of view or also from internal immigration from one state to the other, from one town to another. So internal migration. Not only international, but also continue to support from higher education institutions that work for researchers, individual researchers. We currently have like financing problems for research because there's a lack of resources for universities in Mexico. So due to these bonds, these RENIETs, all the different social organizations, we should also, but also researcher financing on an individual level, we could in turn do a collective research who would in turn go beyond the national at the end of the day. Through this network, we are developing our first research project as network on social work on a national level. I think that's important because we are adding efforts and resources and in order to conduct collective research. And as a result of this work, we'll have some documents which could be published in some journals, not only national, but also international journals. But also like publication of the book from a social work standpoint in Mexico. I think we should also open more spaces, not only the conference itself, this conference, but there's other spaces, opening other spaces in seminars, colloquium, with focus on like the immigration subject, which should be something that should be addressed in other conferences. I think this is something also that we should work on. As far as the National Academy goes, we have the opportunity to do that. And we also have, we are interested in immigration as well as other directions. Year by year, we should be opening more spaces to address the immigration issue. I think it's also important, like every curriculum, like every 5 years, at least here in Mexico, we have to do a curriculum redesign. So we should also add immigration content into the plans and curricula. This is something that we have to do constantly. So that's the direction we should work toward on an institutional level, higher education, not only in Mexico, but also in the US, in Canada, and Central America. I think this is something that we should do permanently and constantly in order to strengthen and to be up to date on these issues. And also the research network on immigration that we have in Mexico, we're barely getting started. Well, as Carmen was saying, we've been working on this for a year in order to come to an agreement to the name. That was not easy, so it implied a series of discussions. We also have a program and we also have a project. But at the same time, why shouldn't we think about a seminar as part of the network, a national seminar on immigration topic to generate another space in order to plant the seed for discussion. And as we move forward, we'll keep growing on this immigration topic from a social work standpoint. That would be my contribution. Thank you very much. I don't see any more raised hands. Thank you so much for the ideas. I think we have an agenda going beyond like 1 year that we were asking for, so. I don't know, Dr. Torres, if we have time for another question.
Me pregunto si alguno de los colegas de...
I wonder if any of our Central America colleagues would like to contribute. I don't know who's here. Professor Borja from Honduras. Martha is here with us from El Salvador. Our colleague from Costa Rica already left. Do you all want to add anything else? Well, I think that from our university in Honduras, we would support and would be available, willing to have all these actions come to fruition and have the opportunity to connect all social work schools, US, Mexico, Central America. This is a great opportunity as countries with the most, immigrant population. I think we're committed 100%. And for instance, Rosario Aragon, we are committed in research, in finding out, in exchanging experiences among students and faculty, and seeing how we can get better in intervention as social workers. We have a long way to go. The issues keep intensifying, but as you were saying, many times in social work we stop at research, but action is the important part. How we translate this knowledge about the issues, but mostly intervention. How we as Hondurans from academia, from social work, or coordinating with other disciplines, that we will be able to establish this coordination and transcend in order to have results so that people from Honduras can go to the US in better conditions with an education, and that it will be easier for them, with as a human right, to have the human right to mobilize, to be willing and able to be in better situations. So we would support any efforts stemming from this, as we are working on the Immigration Observatory that came from the conference, and we are available, from the School of Social Work, from the master's program, and maybe other disciplines and other areas that, we can contribute with. Thank you, Ulda. And as far as intervention goes and intervention models, before Sandra shares, one of the things I love about what you're doing in Honduras is involving civil sector, Rotary clubs, the Red Cross. Do you want to share a little bit more about that? Yes, of course. We had our first contact when you all came over, and we are developing this through our academic practice. Our students are inserting to the institutions. Within our project, we have the goal of organizing a mega conference with all the organizations share. She had that dream of involving the Chamber of Commerce, the government, all the agencies that are working on this. We have seen that we've done a lot so far in that aspect. So I think would be more joining, because there's some recourses that are here and there, but we're not joining forces. And I think our project, our interest from our president to have this immigration center could make this effort move forward. So that's a way, we have a lot left to do in Honduras. And I think now, as part of this network of this international conference for the second year, and we want more results, we want to have more to share with you. Thank you. Professor Sandra, go ahead. Yes. Maybe we should also add that university, we are committed and willing to participate in any efforts that addressing the general issues in immigration. I can also share with you that for me it's important. I don't know how viable this is, but from our universities, from this network, that perhaps we could develop a proposal to create legal immigration mechanism through like maybe work visas or transit visas, because this is one of the main issues in the country, so that these individuals are not like under like human trafficking networks. We think they should be given like 1-2 work visas permits and then come back to Central America so they can go and come back, so that we have a circular regular immigration. And this is something that is closed right now to people that go to Mexican embassy, are not given a visa. If they go to the US embassy, they don't get a visa. So, and some people have no other options because of the issues they suffer. So to create a proposal that generates other options, maybe this would be something that would be more, how would we be able to contribute to this? Thank you, Sandra. As a matter of fact, Dr. Vidal said she had to leave. She had another meeting. We have a lot to do. And as Professor Ulda said, the question changes. Sometimes I feel like when I finally got the answer to the question, then the question changes. So this is never ending. We have plenty of work. This is an initial conversation. We are hoping to see everyone or any colleagues or faculty represented here next week in Mexico City. We're hoping to be able to continue the conversation, and that after the conference, when we get together for coffee to share dinner, that we would be able to develop some ideas that are being planted here. Thanks for responding, for joining us. Thanks again, Ms. Carmen Casas, our leader, and Dr. Pedro Isnardo, Ms. Araceli, for closing. Well, thank you, Doctor, for this unconditional support, always with cooperating, international cooperation, being consummated here in this version of the regional conference. Unless Professor Carmen says otherwise, I would like to, as much as possible, as it depends on me, I would like to, this option that Ms. Sandra presented, I think on the regional conference under the UTRGV organization for next year, maybe in public policy, transnational public policy, I think she has touched on something very important on immigration, especially on the standards, regulations, etc. So I think they should generate a project, a work group along the lines that Director Carmen was sharing, to plant a seed or set a precedent in transnational public policy. I don't know if Director Carmen, if she would like to have some closing words for everyone, please. Or Ms. Araceli Borja. Well, thanks everyone. Yes, we of course accept this proposal. I'm hoping that these contributions will mark the way for us, the direction in which we should go. I think this should be the main result of this regional conference, this work agenda, where we can pour all these contributions and proposals very timely manner within the framework that has brought us here in each of the spaces joining us today. And well, the only thing that I would like to recommend everyone that if we still don't have an MOU with like any of the institutions represented, that we can make that a reality, because I think that's what gives us the strength that we can, yes, put this into like networks, commitments, but also in interinstitutional cooperation, so that we can go beyond where we are right now. This proposal from Ms. Ventura, I think it's crucial, and it's part of what we will be addressing the next week, the 15th and the 16th. And of course, as we say here in Mexico, this has to be like black and white, right? It has to like come into writing, not just being said out loud, but going forward. So I want to thank everyone, your attendance, not only those who participated. I was just thinking, wondering how could we have like everyone, like, because I'm positive that the people following on YouTube even have some like ideas, projects, contributions that would, leave. Right now, it's a mere introduction of what's coming within next week, where you're going to receive a very warm welcome. We know that UNAM we pride ourselves in being good hosts, so we're gonna give you a warm welcome. And those of you that don't know the university, the country, that will have the opportunity to do that, I want bring to everyone. I don't want to name any names because it's going to take forever, but we are expecting you for the next few days. Congratulations. Thank you. See you soon. Thanks for everything. Thanks for the organizing committee also, especially. And to the translators, yes, of course. Miss Carmona, greetings, Miss Carmona, yes. Thank you, and we expect them in Mexico. Well, we have two colleagues from our staff. No, I don't think she's coming. She's not coming, but the other two translators are. Lady Diana, who's joining us today. Well, thanks everyone.
Un abrazo, hasta luego.
Good afternoon.